Tonight on CTV News at 6. It's sparking much debate.
What we need to make sure that our community is protected.
A proposed AI data center dominates discussions at Sioux City Council. And concerns for residents' health and safety. A long-term care home in Sudbury has been issued an order from the province. Plus, teaching these dogs a new trick.
It's very disciplined, so we want the dog to be able to follow procedure.
A specialized training session is coming to Kirkland Lake to help with search operations.
CTV News at 6 with Marina Moore and Tony Rima with weather.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. 4 teens have been arrested after reports of people being shot at with fireworks and a BB gun downtown Sudbury. Greater Sudbury police say they responded to calls that people in a truck were shooting at pedestrians last night around 10 p.m. No serious injuries were reported, though one person did say they were struck by a pellet. Police were able to obtain the license plate of the vehicle and track the suspects to Chelmsford. 2 18-year-olds and 2 17-year-olds have been charged with assault with a weapon and several other charges. OPP in Bonfield, just east of North Bay, are warning of a dirty oil scam and are looking for 2 suspects.
If you're selling your vehicle online, you need to hear about this, the dirty oil scam happening now in the North Bay area. Typically involves...
Police say 2 men claiming to be from the Ottawa area met with the owner of a vehicle for sale. One suspect distracted the owner while the second sprayed a substance in the exhaust pipe before taking it on a test drive. After the test drive, the suspects complained of white smoke coming from the exhaust. While the owner inspected the exhaust, one of the suspects sprayed something on the engine and used the supposed damages to try to negotiate a substantially lower price. The owner sent them away and called police. Meanwhile, police are asking for the public's assistance in identifying 2 suspects who stole a trailer from a business in North Bay yesterday. Police say a gray pickup truck was caught on surveillance video pulling into the business around 3 a.m. Monday, and that 2 men removed a 20-foot cargo trailer and damaged another trailer trying to break into it. For the second time since opening 2 years ago, a long-term care home in Sudbury has been ordered by the province not to take on any new residents. The Ministry of Long-Term Care has told Extended Care Countryside it cannot take on any new admissions. In an email to CTV News, the ministry says over the past 2 years, the facility has undergone 18 inspections and been issued 120 findings of non-compliance. The notice on the ministry's website says the order is based on the belief there's a risk to the health, safety, and well-being of residents. A spokesperson for Extendicare says it has an action plan in place to address the ministry's concerns, and completed items include strengthened on-site leadership, improved approach for direct engagement between home leaders and residents and families, and increased audits by frontline leadership. A similar order to seize new admissions was issued to Extendicare Countryside in December 2024. The home has only been open since May 2024. The topic of AI data centers has been dominating discussions in Sault Ste. Marie, and last night it took up the majority of the City Council meeting. On the table was a vote to establish a framework for the city to deal with these centers and a moratorium on them until that work is complete. CTV's Corey Nordstrom reports.
A lengthy discussion at last night's council meeting ultimately ended with the topic of AI data centers being kicked down the road for 3 weeks. Councillor Angela Caputo initially posed and then withdrew a resolution backed by Lisa Vezo-Allen that would see a moratorium on the facilities until the city can create regulatory framework for the project.
I think it got very muddy from the beginning, from the discussions, and then my motion was boiled down to council agreeing that they wanted to see a municipal framework, but they didn't want to see the municipal framework that I had presented.
At the August 31st meeting, staff will solely be requested to create framework to use the city's land use policies to regulate possible data centers.
That's really what we need. We need to make sure that our community is protected, and we need to make sure that our staff have the tools that they need to make recommendations and decisions based on policies and procedures.
I do want to have community informed consent and expert information before I make a yes or no decision, which could affect our community for 100 years or more.
The city's chief administrator says this is something staff have been working on before Monday's meeting, agreeing that some type of evaluation for each proposal that comes in makes sense.
That's something I think that is important because each project can be different based on the technology, the size, the number of jobs that's associated. So you really need to look at each one individually, but have a framework that you use when you're doing that.
Ver notes that the landscape is moving fast when it comes to AI data centers. Although no advanced talks have taken place yet, he says companies are calling as they explore the area for possible opportunities. Corey Nordstrom, CTV News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Time now for our first check on weather, and we've seen plenty of sunshine once again today, but will it be sticking around? With our first check on the forecast, let's bring in CTV's Tony Rima.
Thanks for that, Marina, and good evening, everyone. Well, if you're heading out for a walk this evening, you might need an umbrella or a rain jacket because pockets of activity right across our broadcast region. We got some sunshine today, some clouds, some showers, and there's also risk of thunderstorms in the forecast. We'll get to that a little later in our show. But as we take a look at our system, kind of unsettled depending upon where you live. Temperatures should be 23, 24 degrees, and they're going to drop ever so slightly, but we'll have to deal with the unsettled conditions for a few more days. Friday looks pretty good. The weekend, well, it all depends where you live. Marina.
Thank you, Tony. A group of dog handlers in the Kirkland Lake area is learning how their animals could one day help locate a missing person. As CTV's Lydia Chubak reports, a 3-day workshop this weekend will teach participants skills used in tracking and search operations.
You did so good today.
A dozen dog handlers will be spending the weekend putting their animals through a series of search and rescue exercises. The 3-day workshop is being hosted by DSV Canine Academy in conjunction with Sheba's School of Dog Training. William Bolton is one of the instructors. He says the idea is to build a pool of qualified civilian teams that can support emergency services when called upon.
It's not a case of trying to replace them or trying to what they call self-deploy and do it myself. That is not what this is all about. This is basically going to be training people to then possibly work in addition to them and work with them in conjunction with whatever's going on.
Participants will learn tracking, area searches, and human remains detection. But Bolton says finding a missing person can mean working far beyond a trail or open field, and the dogs have to be ready for that.
It's very disciplined, so we want the dog to be able to follow procedure. We want the dog to also do quite a bit of what we call agility, because we're not walking along the side of the road with our dog on the leash. These are in rough grounds.
That includes navigating various obstacles while handlers learn to read behaviors. The workshop is part of an effort to develop more local resources for search operations across the region. Deputy Chief Darren Donnell with the Timmins Police Service says that currently there is no canine unit locally and that the service relies on other police services who have these resources when needed. Lydia Chubak, CTV News, Timmins.
And still to come here on CTV News at 6. The province responds to criticism on forest fire response time, saying it's been a record-setting season. Plus, when will renovations begin at Sudbury's historic Bell Mansion?
It happened. Send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
The province provided an update on northern wildfires today. Despite people being able to go home, the government is taking heed on response times and evacuation plans. CTV's Mike Walker has the latest.
As wildfires continue to rage in northern Ontario, crews on the ground are making progress with help from water bombers and helicopters.
We are making steady progress with fewer fires burning out of control.
There are currently 152 active fires with a dozen deemed out of control. 84 additional fires have been put out over the past week. The Minister of Natural Resources says this is Ontario's worst wildfire season on record, with the largest wildfire ever recorded north of Thunder Bay, the size of 350,000 football fields.
While we're not in the clear here in Ontario yet, we are confident that we have the crews and the aircraft that we need to get the job done.
The province's response shifting towards returning people home. In total, 14 communities have been evacuated. So far, 6 communities have returned.
It's incredibly stressful, and we remain engaged on the ground through text, through phone calls, and the likes to make sure that details as communities come back.
But still, more than 1,100 people remain displaced in host communities across the province.
One community is in the process of returning their members home. Our government is committed to supporting affected communities for as long as needed.
The Ford government has been criticized by some First Nations communities and the opposition for how quickly it responded and ordered evacuations. Today, the NDP repeating calls for a public inquiry.
We need it because we cannot trust this government to take responsibility or accountability, and we clearly, year after year, they do nothing to actually improve the situation on the ground.
In response to inquiry calls,
from an evacuation perspective, obviously we try and give as much warning as we possibly can.
Harris noted that some communities are remote and that there is always an internal review at the end of wildfire season, but did not commit to an inquiry.
One of the things that we really want to press upon communities, if you see fires starting and you're able to evacuate, you should do it. You don't necessarily have to wait for the MNR or the government to come in and say, you better get out.
Given the progress made, the government says some crews assisting from other provinces will soon return home or travel to British Columbia to assist with wildfire efforts there. Mike Walker, CTV News.
Yes, British Columbia is also battling devastating wildfires, calling a province-wide state of emergency Saturday. This comes as the entire district of Summerland has been evacuated over the Bald Range wildfire, which has grown to more than 15 square kilometers. Summerland Mayor Doug Holmes describes the flight to safety after residents were told it was time to leave.
We were just told to leave now, and you just throw things in your suitcases. Neighbors were helping neighbors. We have a lot of seniors who live here, so all the senior homes were evacuated onto buses, and the highway north to Kelowna was closed off by the fire, so we only had one way out, and that was south to Penticton, and so there's just this long convoy of cars all night long heading to Penticton.
The BC Wildfire Service says 100 firefighters from Mexico will arrive today to join the fight against the fire that has already claimed one life. The fire that's burning on the shores of Okanagan Lake has forced 20,000 people to leave their homes and has destroyed numerous buildings, including most of the tiny community of Falder, just west of Summerland. The RCMP has launched a criminal investigation into the cause of the fire that erupted on Friday. An 80-year-old woman in Meadow Valley, just west of Summerland, died as she tried to escape. In the midst of the current crisis, British Columbia is clamping down on off-road vehicles in hopes of preventing more human-caused wildfires.
We advised British Columbians today that we are putting a temporary ban in place for recreational off-roading within a number of fire centres, the Kamloops Fire Centre, the Southeast Fire Centre, as well as parts of the Caribou Fire Centre and the Coastal Fire Centre.
The temporary ban took effect at noon Monday and carries fines of up to $1,150. Off-road vehicles include ATVs, motorcycles, and side-by-side vehicles, which officials say can spark accidental fires in hot and dry conditions. And there's more news ahead, but first, your full weather forecast with Tony Rima and how things are looking for the next 7 days.
Thanks so much for that, Marina. Yes, things are pretty nice right across our broadcast region for the most part. Let's take a look at our current temperatures. Starting in through Timmins, a mix of sun and cloud coming in at 24 degrees. Same temperature in through Cochrane. For Moosonee, 19 degrees at this hour. In through Cap, 23. Beautiful, in fact. For Chapleau, 23 degrees. A little cooler for Waba, but mostly sunny. 25 at this hour. A mix of sun and cloud in through Sault Ste. Marie. Let's head to Parry Sound, shall we? 23 degrees, beautiful there. Let's go north and see what's happening in through North Bay. Here we go, 22 degrees, should be about 24 this time of year, so almost spot on temperature-wise. A little warmer in through Timiskaming Shores, Kirkland Lakes, 23. And as we head on over to Greater Sudbury, sun cloud, 22. Much the same in through Espanola and warmer for Elliott Lake and Gore Bay. Your 7-day weather forecast still ahead. Marina.
All right, it's time now for a quick break here on CTV News at 6. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Urgent trade talks took place in Washington today between Canada and the U.S. It's the second meeting in less than a week and new 50% tariffs just over a week away. CTV's Mike LeCouture is in Washington with the latest.
CTV News has learned that both Canadian and American trade representatives are aiming to put the layout of a trade deal in front of U.S. President Donald Trump in the days ahead of that August 19th deadline. How confident are you about getting a deal, Minister? Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Canada's lead trade negotiator with the U.S., Janice Charette, had a nearly 1-hour meeting with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on Tuesday. Now, it's unclear how that meeting went, but last week, industry sources with knowledge of the discussions were cautiously optimistic about the progress that was being made. Proposals are being discussed by both sides, including the removing of Canadian counter tariffs on autos and looking at those provincial bans on American alcohol. Canadian dairy quotas are also on the table. In exchange, the U.S. would agree to lower sectoral tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, autos, and the lumber industry as well. Following today's meeting, Minister Dominic LeBlanc was tight-lipped about how it went. Minister, how close are we to a deal?
Bonjour. Hello. You know we're not going to discuss those things.
But how confident are you the way that the conversations are going?
Full points for trying. You're outside in the Washington heat in the summer.
I know, but a lot of Canadians are wondering. A lot of Canadians are wondering how close you are.
We'll have something to say when the moment's right.
This was the third face-to-face meeting between LeBlanc and Greer in as many weeks. And while it's unclear exactly when they'll sit down together again, LeBlanc's office tells CTV News that Janice Charette is in contact with her American counterparts daily. Mike LeCouture, CTV News, Washington.
Questions are being asked about Canada's possible involvement in the U.S.-Israel war with Iran after a high-ranking Air Force colonel was approved for the Meritorious Service Cross Medal. CTV's Judy Trin has more on why a good news story was buried.
The name of a Canadian colonel who organized a massive emergency operation in the Middle East to bring people to safety has been kept under wraps for more than a year.
It's quite ludicrous that we wouldn't be celebrating this in an open way, in a transparent way.
Colonel David Turenne was awarded the Meritorious Service Cross. His leadership was noted through an innocuous government statement, recognizing him for helping evacuate 10,000 personnel from the Al Udeid Air Base in June of 2025. That was when the U.S. and Israel launched their 12-day war against Iran. The base became a target.
The threat is obvious. They're within striking distance of the ballistic cruise missile and, non-conventional threats, sabotage, bombs, these kinds of things, terrorist acts, that Iran can pose to them.
Turenne, one of a handful of Canadians embedded with U.S. forces, helped move soldiers and equipment out of the Middle East to Shaw Air Base in South Carolina. A former Conservative defense minister believes the Liberal government kept this quiet for political reasons.
Then and now, I suspect that it was a domestic political calculus.
This is another example of a lack of transparency with the Iran conflict.
I'm not the only spokesperson for the government, but I'll just confirm that Canadian forces are, the members of the Canadian forces are all safe and sound.
After war reignited in February, a Canadian forces hub in Kuwait was bombed, but the government didn't tell the public until the damage was captured in satellite photos.
Canadian military and the government are balancing the need for operational security for ongoing operations and the personal security of those individuals who are deployed.
In a statement, the Department of National Defense says that the role of Colonel David Turenne was to help move military personnel from 17 nations off the base. D&D reiterates that Canada did not participate in any offensive attacks against Iran. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
The number of auto thefts appears to be trending down across Canada, with the biggest decrease being reported in Alberta. A new report from Equité Association shows the number of auto thefts reported across the country in the first half of 2026 dropped by 10% from the same period last year. The report says auto thefts are trending toward pre-crisis levels similar to before the pandemic, which caused a shortage of new vehicles and a spike in thefts. Equité Association's Brian Gass says the decline is due to a number of factors.
I attribute it to the collaboration, cooperation, government providing funding, CBSA prioritizing auto theft as a concern, and standing up to the provincial auto theft team in Ontario, dedicated crowns, private-public partnerships, making the media making public aware of things that they can do to protect their vehicles. So there's a lot of things that have contributed to this, but it's definitely positive.
Gast adds that most of the changes that have been made have been reactionary, and more needs to be done to prevent thefts from happening in the first place for the trend to continue. Drivers are being urged to fill up today ahead of an expected jump at the pumps tomorrow. The cost of gas is set to rise 6 cents overnight, according to Canadians for Affordable Energy President Dan McTeague, who is also predicting that diesel will rise by 12 cents to roughly $2.21 a liter. McTeague says the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the U.S. has dropped below 300 million barrels for the first time since the 80s. And there's more news ahead, but first, here's Tony Rima with all of the information you need to know for the next 7 days.
Thanks for that, Marina. Let's start with our forecast radar, and depending upon where you live, you might be experiencing a shower or two, but that's going to move out across our broadcast region. We're starting to get some clearing skies. However, especially in through tomorrow, Sault Ste. Marie just south, along with Chapleau, Sudbury, Timiskaming Shores, Timmins, heck, the entire broadcast region, showers expected, and then 7 p.m. in through Wednesday, especially in through Sudbury, North Bay, you can see unsettled conditions going to be very loud out there, especially with the thunder, see the lightning, and a risk of thunderstorms, of course. And then we start to get some clearing, which is not all that bad. What is causing all of this, you might ask? Well, we do have high pressure that's building in from the prairies. That's going to clear skies just a little bit, but then right behind that, we also have low pressure, and as a result, that's going to bring those unsettled conditions along with a chance of showers or two and risk of thunderstorms. Overnight, this is what's on the way. And through Sudbury, a chance of showers, 13 degrees is an overnight low for Sault Ste. Marie. Partly cloudy, 12 in through Timmins, some precipitation, 10 degrees, Timiskaming Shores, 13, chance of some showers. A little rain in through North Bay, 13 degrees. For Moosonee, 10 degrees, rain as you could take a look at the board. Plenty of showers overnight in through Gore Bay, though, partly cloudy and a few clouds for Parry Sound. All right, here's your 7-day weather forecast, starting with Sudbury Nickel tomorrow. Well, you're going to get almost a little bit of everything. Sun, cloud, showers, and risk of thunderstorms. Temperature spot on this time of year, 24 degrees as a daytime high. In through Thursday, some showers again, going to be a bit unsettled. We'll get some clearing. In through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, however, back to the clouds. Back to more precipitation. Temperature starts to fall a little bit. Then it ticks up next week. Monday, 24, even warmer on Tuesday. For Sault Ste. Marie, Algoma, mostly sunny conditions coming in at 24 degrees, so slightly above normal. You hit that norm mark, especially on Thursday. Friday, temperature drops a little bit. And take a look at Saturday. Beautiful sunshine, a great day to do an outdoor project or two if you have those in the works. In through Sunday, back to the clouds and showers, and then some clearing Monday, Tuesday. For Timmins, Cochrane, Kapuskasing, a risk of thunderstorms tomorrow. Spot on temperature-wise, then the temperature drops Thursday. We get more clearing Friday. Unsettled weekend in store and more rain next week. So I know it's dry out there, but you know, we're getting a lot of rain lately. In through Timiskaming Shores and Kirkland Lake, a risk of thunderstorms. Temperature drops on Thursday. The rain sticks around. We get some clearing. Sunday looks unsettled. That carries over into Monday. Tuesday, though, very comfortable, 25 degrees when it should be 23 this time of year. And your 7-day weather forecast for North Bay, West Nipissing. Sun, cloud, rain, and risk of thunderstorms. The temperature is the norm for this time of year. A little cooler into Thursday. Friday, beautiful sunshine. Saturday looks even better. Sunday, though, however, we take a step back. 19 degrees, a little cooler. Chance of rain, more rain Monday. And Tuesday, 25 when it should be 24 with a mix of sun and cloud. And our picture of the day comes to us from Trevor Graydon of New Liskeard, and a beautiful shot of the camp there in through Montreal River. By the way, thanks so much, Trevor. If you'd like to send your pictures, you can send them to us at weather.pictures@bellmedia.ca or click on the QR code right there. And still to come on CTV News at 6, we have the latest on the Bell Mansion in Sudbury and plans for this historic building.
The well-known and historic Bell Mansion in Sudbury is one step closer to its new purpose. CTV's Angela Gemmell has details on changes approved today.
All in favor? Thank you.
It didn't take long, but this approval from Sudbury City Council means the new owner of Bell Mansion can begin renovations to the historic site.
The chimney, which was falling apart, a southern wall that was also falling apart. So there was major safety issues involved with that. So we've retained heritage stonemasons from Kingston.
At its council meeting today, City Council voted to amend the heritage designation bylaw, first passed in 1984 for the John Street property, also known as Bell Rock. The change incorporates a statement of cultural heritage value and interest, clarifying which elements on the property are protected.
It brings a lot more protection to the Bell Mansion. Before it was a blanket heritage, where now it's defined, so what the attributes are, which gives it a much more solid protection.
No, who was at the council meeting, says now that the heritage amendment has been approved, his team can move on to the next step in the project, rezoning. The area is zoned institutional, but that will need to be adjusted to allow for a fine dining restaurant at the mansion.
A large team of professionals working on the project. So right now we're just compiling the rezoning application and getting it ready for staff's review and council's consideration at planning committee.
No says the heritage designation limits what can be done on the property, but it's the historical aspects that appeal to him.
It maintains the integrity of that building, and we are very committed to upholding that as well.
It was last fall when Devla Properties first purchased the property from Laurentian University for $1.25 million. Several open houses were held earlier this summer to let the public know the plans to create a dine-in restaurant with a targeted opening date of next summer. Angela Gemmell, CTV News, Sudbury.
Oil changes aren't necessarily complicated. Many people do them at home themselves, but as CTV's Pat Foran explains, there are hidden dangers do-it-yourselfers should be aware of.
I've been around vehicles and engines and stuff pretty well my whole life.
Shannon Desjardins of Sudbury says she's been doing oil changes on her own vehicles for years.
For me to just be able to have everything at home and do it when it's convenient for me.
2 years ago, she leased a 2024 Subaru Outback. She was doing oil changes and keeping records. But in January, at 71,000 kilometers, something went wrong.
I was almost home and a little red light came on, which I'd never seen before, but it was an oil light.
The light went out, so the next day she continued to drive it.
On my way back into town, the light came on again, and that's where I ultimately had it towed because there was obviously a bigger issue.
Desjardins was told there was sludge in the engine and other major problems. She was asked to provide proof of oil changes and said she did them herself. That's when she was told repairs would not be covered under warranty.
The only reason why they're denying it is because I did my own oil changes.
We reached out to Subaru Canada, and a spokesperson said owner-completed maintenance must follow the maintenance schedule. A record of all services must be supported with documentation, including receipts, to ensure warranty coverage can be determined appropriately. If you're handy and have an older car, you may want to do your own oil changes, but if you have a newer vehicle still under warranty, you should return to the dealer or at least an auto shop or lube shop that can give you a paper trail with receipts.
When you do the oil change yourself, the risk is too high. I wouldn't do it.
Car Help Canada says a dealer will keep detailed records and use the correct oil and filters. The group says as repairs get more expensive, changing oil yourself may not be worth it.
You might think you're saving $100, $150. It might cost you thousands of dollars afterward.
It doesn't sit well with me.
Subaru said their investigation is continuing. Desjardins continues to make lease payments and pay insurance on a car she can't drive. Pat Foran, CTV News.
A U.S. announcement on reducing and changing vaccine mandates in the U.S. is sparking concern from Canadian doctors and medical experts. CTV's Pauline Chan has the details.
Calling it the gold standard of childhood immunizations, Trump signed an executive order to reduce the number of shots children in the U.S. receive.
A vaccination that looks like the size of a bottle of soda poured into a little child's body.
Medical experts say this is one of the inaccuracies in Trump's comments.
We don't have good medical evidence for a lot of the changes that were suggested in the U.S. document.
Trump calls for RSV protection to be given only to high-risk babies, but
we know that most of the hospitalizations are in healthy infants, not in high-risk infants.
Similarly, Dr. Vivian Brown says meningitis occurs more in healthy teens, not high-risk groups. In addition, Trump wants to split the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine given in one shot now in Canada and the U.S.
For example, at 1 year, you should have 5 separate visits for vaccines rather than getting them all in the same day.
Previous research is that parents are unlikely to finish vaccine programs when they have to come back over and over again.
Doctors say there's no medical benefit to splitting the vaccine, and while money may be saved with fewer shots given, Brown says fewer vaccinations will lead to more hospitalizations down the road.
This doesn't have the force of law. What he's basically doing is saying to the states should look into this and try and implement this, but I think states will ignore this.
But the U.S. position will affect Canadians, and not just by increasing questions and confusion about vaccines.
If you have that amount of mixing of populations where one group is systematically less vaccinated and protected, they become a vector to bring disease into Canada. I think this is a further strong argument for strengthening vaccine capacity and use in Canada, because that's how you protect against this.
And if Canadians have vaccine questions, Dr. Brown says talk to your healthcare provider. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Well, farming in Canada is not easy and it's not cheap. From seeds to fertilizer to harvesting, the process can be expensive, but a new grain is showing promise. More from CTV's Maria Saru.
This is kernza. Unlike wheat or barley, it grows back every year, meaning farmers don't have to start from seed every spring.
Normally, there's a lot of costs associated with planting a crop, so if you can get away with planting it once every 3 to 5 years, then you save those inputs.
Research scientist Aaron Mills says wheat can cost up to $800 to plant per acre, but for kernza, it's closer to $100, and it can also do double duty, producing both grain and forage for livestock. But there are trade-offs like lower returns, and the market is limited, making it a good fit for farmers looking for a rotational crop.
It's not for everybody. What we try to do is add more tools to the toolbox for farmers.
One of kernza's biggest advantages may be below ground. Its roots stay in the soil year-round, storing carbon pulled from the atmosphere. And because it needs less fertilizer and fewer trips across the field, researchers say it can also cut greenhouse gas emissions. Not only can it survive in maritime conditions, but also western winters, so land isn't left bare between crops.
I'm out west where this was prairie, and the great soils that we had were the result of having the permanent ground cover. So there are some maybe long-term benefits for all of us.
He adds Kernza is already being used to make artisan bread and brew beer, but there's potential for more. Researchers are now watching to see just how long Kernza can keep growing in the same field before it needs to be replanted.
And that was CTV's Maria Saru reporting. Still ahead here on CTV News at 6. A list of standout women are honored in Sudbury, set to receive a special award of distinction. That story is coming up.
Clothing provided by Laura, Melanie Lynn.
Several standout women are being honored in Sudbury through the YWCA's annual Women of Distinction Awards Gala coming up in October. And the recipients were announced today. You get more from CTV's Madison Merrier.
Out of the 13 women who were nominated for the prestigious award, 7 outstanding women in Sudbury have been named to receive the honor.
They make an impact in our community, and they're not doing it for money or accolades. They're doing it because they genuinely want to give of their time and their talents.
Gorman says those receiving the award are being recognized for the work they do for women and girls. Some examples include facilitating reading circles for English learners, becoming the first female chief of the Sudbury Emergency Department, raising over $350,000 in support of nonprofits, or championing initiatives to improve access to specialized services for healthcare in rural areas.
It's definitely necessary for us to use our voices and to speak for the women and children in our communities. On a daily basis, we get to help families find their home, but this way we can also help people find a safe home.
I truly feel like this is what I was meant to do. I also work with the OPP, so I sit on their sexual assault review committee. It's opened a lot of opportunities, like I said, to try and support survivors of violence.
While many of the women we spoke with say they feel humbled by the award, Gorman says it's important to recognize the work they've done.
This is an amazing gift that they're giving to the community, and it really needs to be recognized and hopefully motivate other women or other people in our community to do the same.
There are incredible women in this community. It is truly amazing the work that's being done behind the scenes.
It's nice to be able to feel like we're making an impact locally to the women and children here in Sudbury.
The gala will take place on October 17th, and organizers say the money raised will support annual youth conferences that are focusing on toxic messaging that perpetuates gender-based violence. Madison Merrier, CTV News, Sudbury. More than 40 Special Olympians from Northern Ontario are in Medicine Hat, Alberta this week for Special Olympic Summer Games. 2 out of 3 Ontario soccer teams competing are from the North Bay Shadflies and the Thunder Bay Thunderwolves. Athletes from 9 communities, including New Liskeard, Elliott Lake, Marathon and Dryden, as well as the major centres, will be competing in track and field, bocce, powerlifting, 10-pin bowling and swimming. We're wishing the best of luck to all of the Olympians competing. The new event center in Sudbury will be run by Oakview Group. At an event today overlooking the construction site for the new facility, the city announced OVG as the facility's planned operator. OVG works with several event centers, arenas, and stadiums across the country, including Rogers Stadium in Toronto and Hamilton's TD Coliseum. Sudbury Wolves Sports and Entertainment also announced today the Wolves and Sudbury 5 will be key tenants of the event center when it opens. The new event center is expected to open in 2028. Canada's premier kart racing event, the Honda Indy, will have a new course for the next few years. CTV's Sean Leathong learned more about the new circuit ahead of this weekend's race.
The new home of the Ontario Honda dealers Indy is here, with Markham raising the Indy flag as their kickoff today, celebrating the first time hosting the international event.
I'm so proud of the city of Markham because this truly is a city of innovation and diversity and possibility. And for something like an international series, one of the greatest racing series in my opinion, to choose Markham to host it is just, it's mind-blowing to me.
Professional race car driver Demi Chalkas grew up in Markham. She's qualified in Toronto in the past while driving in the Mercedes AMG G4, a place where she has fond memories.
My dad and I would go there, and I remember always being on the other side of the fence, holding on, looking, just dreaming of being on that side of the fence, racing a car one day.
The Toronto Indy had its home on the exhibition grounds for nearly 40 years before moving north for this season, something Markham Mayor Frank Scarpitti says was a huge feat.
We had an agreement signed in July. We had major construction happen last fall. We finished it off in the spring, and we are ready to go.
Like previous years, the track will be a road course, but now it's longer, just over 3.5 kilometers, up from 2.8 kilometers down at the X. And fans can expect to be right in the action, with Unionville GO Station opening right to pit lane.
We have an exciting race course. The drivers are going to be impressed with the quality of this course. They are going to notice the difference between this course and the previous one that they had.
And while the cars won't hit the track until later this week, today there was a chance for some to try virtual racing.
What's it like driving an Indy car?
There were some free giveaways like tickets to the event and some free food. In all, they're hoping 150,000 fans come to the three-day event starting Friday with race day on Sunday.
This is going to be obviously not only a benefit to the city of Markham, all of York Region is going to benefit from this, and actually even the north end of the city of Toronto.
And while the race was once called the Roar along the lakeshore, now the Rumble is headed north. And this race up here in Markham is anything but a one-off. The agreement is now for 5 years, so if this goes well, they'll have a lot to build on. Sean Leithong, CTV News.
A new podcast is set to make some big book recommendations from a famous reader. A Great Book with Barack Obama is the former president's newest endeavor. Obama will host the podcast and feature his favorite books, some that dramatically influenced him, and guests will be joining in on the discussions. The former president was known during his 2 terms in office to be an avid reader and has authored several books of his own. The podcast will be available starting September 24th.
Entertainment is brought to you by Super Big Money TV Bingo. Join us this Saturday at 6:30 on CTV.
Adam Driver and Miles Teller team up for a new film, and Jon Hamm faces major drama in his latest series. Here's Rick Damigella with The Hollywood Report.
It's New York. Everyone's on the take all the time.
Adam Driver and Miles Teller take on the mob. The pair play brothers in Paper Tiger and find themselves entangled with the Russian mafia in 1980s New York. Scarlett Johansson also stars in the drama, which arrives November 13th. Sharon Stone has been selected for the Creative Coalition's Humanitarian Awards. The event celebrates entertainers who have made an impact through leadership, community, and important causes. The actress was chosen for her work as Global Campaign Chair of AMFAR. John Stamos will also be honored for serving as a Child Help Ambassador. The event takes place September 10th in Los Angeles.
I'm the lead reporter on this story.
Fred, you are the story.
Jon Hamm hits the airwaves in American Hostage. The actor portrays a radio reporter who gets pulled into a hostage situation when the perpetrator demands to be interviewed live. The anthology thriller series premieres September 20th on MGM+. In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
You are live.
A new kingpin could soon rule the international cannabis trade as Curaleaf sets its sights on a Canadian company. BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya has more.
Aurora Cannabis is in the crosshairs of U.S. giant Curaleaf, which is intending to launch an unsolicited takeover bid. The $4 per share offer was going straight to investors after reports that Aurora's board refused to engage in private talks. In a statement this afternoon, though, Aurora says, contrary to the reports, its lead director corresponded with Curaleaf CEO as recently as last month. Aurora says it does plan to form a special committee of independent directors to consider the proposal. The offer comes as Aurora grapples with mounting headwinds, particularly in its Canadian medical and consumer cannabis segment. At one point today, shares of Aurora shot up more than 20%. And here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is up to 71.82. West Texas Intermediate also finished the day higher, up to 83.20 a barrel. Western Canadian Select is up to 65.81, and it was yet another record high for the TSX today, closing at 36,475 points. Those are your business headlines. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
And here are the current prices for some key commodities we watch. Gold is up $20.73, closing the day at $43.68.55 US an ounce. Silver dipped to $1.04. Copper up a penny, and nickel down 2 cents, ending the day at $7.54 US a pound. And let's bring Tony back now for one last look at the weather for Wednesday.
Thanks for that, Marina. Sun, cloud, and showers. Let's check out your forecast, starting with Sudbury tomorrow. Well, a risk of thunderstorms coming in at 24 degrees Celsius. For Timmins, much the same type of forecast. Slightly cooler, though. Sault Ste. Marie's kind of the outlier, the anomaly, if you will. 24 degrees, mostly sunny as we head on over to North Bay. Sun, cloud, rain, and risk of thunderstorms, 24 degrees for Parry Sound. Sun and cloud, 23. Nice day shaping up there. And finally, in through Timiskaming Shores, sun, cloud, and a chance of precipitation, plus risk of thunderstorms, 23 degrees as a daytime high. Marina.
Well, finally for us tonight, British Columbia farmers gathered again this year to give away free ugly produce, they call it. The tradition started 4 years ago to prevent vegetables that would otherwise be tossed away. More than 30,000 people turned up for this year's Ugly Potato Day, setting a new world record for the largest donation of produce in 24 hours. More than 246,000 kilograms were given away, topping the 2016 record set in Sacramento, California. The produce was either damaged or too small to sell in stores.
The aim of this event is to show our community that, firstly, local farmers care. We see that you're going through a hard time, so we have over 25 farms that donated to this event. Secondly, it's to show the amount of food that we can't eat just because it looks ugly, even though it's still nutritious and delicious.
Produce from 25 different farms was provided. The event was held at a local fairgrounds to handle the large crowd. And I have to say that produce looks fantastic. The zucchini, wow. But hey, at least it's all being put to good use. That's all the time we have here on CTV News at 6. Amanda Hicks is in at 11:30, so tune in then. Thanks for watching.